Welcome back. Today, simple interest. Interesting. Nice simple design by my designer. Anyway, today, simple interest, if you're interested. If not, I guess go to a different video. Whatever. Alright, simple interest. Simple interest. Here we go. Simple interest is pretty simple. Most interest is called compound interest, and that's another animal. However, to introduce you to the idea of what interest is and kind of how to calculate it a little bit, we're going to do some simple interest questions, and you'll have these too from time to time. But realize that most things are compound interest. This would be a one-time application of interest, boom. But car loans, house loans, things like that are typically compound interest. I just want you to know that there's a difference. Okay, the key to simple interest is follow the formula faithful to its finality. You form the formula first and follow the formula faithfully to its finality, finding the fantastic conclusion. I don't know an F word for that. Anyway, but you follow that down. And you answer the question. ATQ, answer the question. Sometimes they'll ask for the interest, sometimes they'll ask for the rate, sometimes they'll ask for the time. And we're not going to do all those types at this level. When we get into more algebra type things, when you have to rearrange what you know to find out what you don't know, we'll do that then. But for now, all of these will be finding the actual interest the way the formula is set up. But know that there will be some other types of questions for you, lurking, waiting for your future to show you great adventures. Okay, I equals PRT is the formula for simple interest. Interest equals P for principal. Principal means that which you started with. The initial money you stuck in the account, the bank account, to get interest on. The initial money you borrowed to get interest added to that you have to pay back. The money you initially spent on that credit card or whatever that they're going to bill you interest for using that service. That kind of a thing. That's the principal. It's what you start with. The R is the rate, the annual percentage rate, the rate of interest. And that is expressed in a decimal or a fraction. We will do one of each of these to show that it can work in either way. Some people like decimals, some people like fractions, and sometimes it's easier depending on what the situation is. One might be better than the other. So that one. And then the T, interest equals PRT, principal times rate times time. And time is in years. It has to be. So if you're given a situation where it's 6 months, this would be 1/2 or 5/10, 0.5. Half of a year. It has to be in years or you'll get the wrong answer every time unless there's a weird accident. But it's in years. I equals PRT. So let's get into it. Number one, interest on $800 at 6% for 1 year. This one is a pretty simple and straightforward one. So I'll go ahead and just start with the formula faithfully first forever. So we start with our formula. I equals PRT. And I'm leaving some space in between there so there's room for me to write in the information from whatever situation that comes upon me. So we have $800. That is our principal. That's what we start with. Interest on $800. That's our initial chunk at 6% for a year. So we have $800. 800. That is our principal. So what is our rate? It's at 6%. And for those of you who remember the changing decimals to fractions to percents and all that lesson, if we change that to a decimal in this case, with the decimal over 2, and the decimal for 6% would be 0.06 or 6/100ths. Percent means out of 100, so 6 out of 100, 6/100ths. And then the time in years is 1 in this case. So that's pretty easy, so that's just times 1. So then once we have that, if you had a calculator, you just type that out, or we could do it by hand, whichever way we want to do that. So I'm going to do it by hand here. I'm going to take the 800 times 6/100ths, and then 0, 0, 48. 2 decimals there, 2 decimals there, so this is going to be $48. Now the question here is how much interest. This is the question, just the interest, not the total that the loan is going to be paid back for, or not the total amount that will be in the account that started with $800. But just the interest. So if I would have added this together and said, well, $848 would be the total in the pile, that would have been correct for the wrong question. So be sure to read the question carefully. Next one, interest on $500 at 9% for 8 months. Okay, so we're changing it up a little bit. And I'm going to use a fraction for this one. But we start with our formula, faithfully, forever. But I just wrote it on the previous question. Yeah, well, write it again. And pretty soon you'll just have it memorized. You won't even have to think about it. It'll be automatic. One less thing you got to think about. Then you can do more math without thinking. I love that. So here we go. Principal, $500. Yep, that's what we started with. We started with $500. And actually for this one, I'm not going to use parentheses. I'm going to use a dot. Times the rate. The rate is 9%. 9, watch this now, per cent. For those of you who may not have seen the video where we talked about percents and fractions and things. And then for 8 months, times 8. Wrong. That's the mistake that people will make. It can't be in months. It has to be in years. It has to be in years. Well, I guess only if you want it right. I guess if you want to get it wrong, you can do whatever you want. But if you want it right, it has to be in years. So we have to change that. Well, what's it? Oh no, 8 months. What's that a year? Percent, decimal, fraction. We'll just write it this way. 8 out of 8 months out of 12 months. So we're here. Let's make that a fraction. Now it's a fraction thing. Most people are afraid of fractions, but watch our fraction videos, you'll see how easy it is. But now here we make sure you have fractions, cancel if you can, and we can cancel here. And we can cancel all kinds of ways. I'm going to start here with the big ones. 100 divided by 100 is 1. 500 divided by 100 is 5. So where else can we cancel though? We can cancel the 9 and the 12. So 9 divided by 3 is 3. 12 divided by 3 is 4. Anywhere else? Oh, looky there. Now we can cancel here. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 8 divided by 4 is 2. And then we can go on with the next step. Make sure you have fractions. Cancel if you can. Multiply across. 5 times 3 is 15. Times 2 is 30. 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. So 30 divided by 1 is 30. So we can see that the interest, again, this one's just asking for interest. Interest on $500 at 9% for 8 out of 12 months. Cancel if you can, multiply across, and reduce, man. That's it for the fraction. So we now know that that's 30. That'd be a lot easier than just doing decimals. Decimals can get ugly because they go on, they repeat, some of them. So fractions are friendly. Now let's move on to this next one. This next one's a little bit different in that this one's asking a different question. Borrowed so-and-so, whoever borrowed $6,000 at 8% for 1 year and 6 months. So we have a combination here. And what is the total owed? And there's several ways we can go about this. I'm just going to show you one. And you can replay this and hopefully figure out some other ways to do it that's more, easier, fun, or whatever for you. One thing that's great about math is it's totally creative. Within the boundaries given for whatever you're doing, you can operate in a lot of different ways and be creative in those boundaries. So 6,000. First of all, we start with our formula first, faithfully forever. So interest. We need to know the interest first before we can know the total. So the interest would be, well, our principal is 6,000, and our percentage rate is 8%. So I'm going to do the decimal this time like we did the first time. And time is 1 year and 6 months. Ooh, so how many years is 1 year, 6 months? Well, that's 1 1/2. 6 months is half of a year, so it's 1 1/2. Again, that could be a fraction. Then you do that to an improper fraction and multiply that. Or you can do a decimal just for fun. We did the decimal, the fraction, so I'm going to try the decimal again over here. 1 1/2 years. And then we multiply that all out. And you can multiply these two first, those two first, these two first. It doesn't matter. Multiplication is what we call associated. You can just put whatever two together in whatever order you want to. So I'm going to start off with, I'll start off with these two. So if I go over here and I go 6,000 times this, well, I have 3 zeros and then 48. 2 here, 2 there, so there's 480. So doing these two come down to 480. 80 times 1.5. So now I multiply those. 480 times 1.5, 0, 40, 24. Now I'm in the tens place. So I put the 0 there, the 8 and the 4 there. I add 1 there, 1 there. So I end up with 720. So this would be $720. Woohoo! All done. Nope, that's not the question. It's not interest. I'm not asking me for interest. It's asking me what's the total. This will be the interest on that money. But I still have to pay back that money, or whoever does. So I have that $6,000 that I originally borrowed, plus the interest on top of that. It's like a snowball. The interest, if you take a tennis ball and you pack it with snow all around it, and you keep rolling it and get a great big old honking snowball, well, the principle is like that tennis ball. That's the original thing you started with. And the interest is all the stuff packed around the outside. So if we pack around the snowball or the tennis ball of $6,000, and we pack around that snow of $720, then to find out what the whole thing is, we've got to add that. Compound interest would just keep rolling and rolling and rolling and rolling. But for this one, we just add the 720 to it. So our total would be $6,720 just by doing the interest. Follow the formula first, answer the question, and simple interest will be simple. Have fun. See you next time.